Welcome to MLA Voices, the podcast that delves into the world of the Master of Liberal Arts at the Johns Hopkins University. I'm your host, Tristan Cabello, Associate Director of the MLA, and in each episode of this podcast, we welcome a different alum to share their experiences, challenges, and successes within the program. Join us as we explore the diverse perspectives and insights that our alumni bring to the table. Whether you're a current student, a fellow alum, or simply interested in liberal arts, tune in and discover the voices that have shaped and been shaped by the MLA program at Hopkins. And today I'm joined by Andrew Kipe. Andrew graduated in 2022. And it's really my pleasure to have you on this podcast, Andrew. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, and so the first question that I have for every student on the podcast is, if you could just introduce yourself, could you share a little bit of your background and also the reasons why you wanted to enroll in the Masters of Liberal Arts at Hopkins?
Sure, thanks. So I currently work for Johns Hopkins. I am the Assistant Dean of Performance Activities and Preparatory Education at the Peabody Institute, which is the Music and Dance Conservatory, one of the 10 divisions of Hopkins. And just briefly, the portfolio, what that all means is that my departments and I manage all of the roughly 1,000 various concerts each academic year in the conservatory and the preparatory. The preparatory is a pre-college portion of our work here at Peabody that has roughly 2,500, mainly youth, young students, and a whole different group of faculty. So I keep very busy with that work. I've been at Peabody about 5.5 years. Prior to coming into this role and moving into higher education, I had what I say, the first half of my working career as an executive managing professional orchestras, and I did that in 5 different orchestras in 4 different states. And so I came to this program a little later in life, but that's not necessarily unusual for the MLI program, I think. Yeah. And as I said, I made the decision to sort of make a career shift after about 25 years in orchestras. And moving into higher ed gave me the time and sort of the environment to be able to explore my own sort of personal education in a way that I wasn't able to previously. So I had, for a number of years, to try to decide what I wanted to do for a master's degree. I have an undergraduate degree in music. I was actually a singer back in the day, not much anymore, but and then obviously devoted my life to working in music. But I'd always considered, do I want to come back and get an MBA? Do I want to get a nonprofit administration degree? What did I want to do? And I actually had some fits and starts over the years. I started one program specifically, wasn't the right fit for me, and that was 15 years ago or more. So when I got to Hopkins and Peabody, and I really wanted to take advantage of some of the opportunities here, and did my research and found the MLA program. And what really resonated with me was the ability to invest in myself in a way that was going to sort of enhance my ability to think critically, to spend some time studying some topics that I found personally interesting. The getting a business degree would have been fine for the resume. I think it's a question, given my background, whether it was going to be professionally beneficial or not. I mean, it couldn't have hurt, right? But I just couldn't get excited about it. And one of the aspects of this program that really attracted me was I tell people the sort of the choose your own adventure model, right? That the breadth of the courses that are offered allowed me to really build a degree progression that was going to impact me personally and be edifying, but also be able to layer in some aspects of things that were helpful for my work on a day-to-day basis. To be fair, I also just took some courses that I thought were fun, so that was another coming back as an adult learner, having the ability to sort of take some courses that are just personally interesting was really fun, and it was a great experience for me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but the second question is about your motivation and aspiration. So you kind of talked a little bit about your primary goals in enrolling in the Master of Liberal Arts. Maybe if you can expand on this a little bit, and also how has the program influenced your views on the
Yeah.
liberal arts?
The interdisciplinary nature of the program was something that I found really attractive, and something that uh, somewhat unique. I think the ability to take one course in art history, another course in critical theory, another course in I took one in religions of the emerging world, right? So just a really broad spectrum of topics that were all really well grounded in sort of the academic rigor that I was looking for, and the experiences that I was hopeful for as sort of an adult learner. Um, as I progressed in the program, I really enjoyed being back in the classroom, right? And it's I think a different perspective maybe than I had as a 20 something, as I was finishing my undergrad degree and whatnot. It's probably something that a lot of adult folks say. But I started maybe about halfway through the course, through the degree progression, trying to decide, did I want to do something beyond this? Did I want to, again, being in higher ed and um, maybe thinking about it slightly differently, but I sort of decided that I would at least consider if there an option beyond the master's program for career aspirations for a doctoral degree. And twofold. So I sort of made that decision that I was going to pursue that. I'll still go back to that in a minute. But what um, what this program allowed me to do was, when I made that determination and sort of coalesced around uh, sort of a research interest, or at least the beginnings of a research interest, and the ability to sort of choose those courses then, particularly in the second half of my program, that really aligned with those future goals, right? So, I took a really interesting course on place of school and society. I was able to scaffold my research methods course and some others around that specific research focus, which so I'm currently enrolled and on track to finish in about a year, um, Doctor of Education program through the College of William and Mary, Virginia, which again is sort of a really flexible interdisciplinary program. I'm focused, my research and my dissertation is focused on ensemble education and some of the changes that have happened, particularly in the last 20 years in the field, as we work to broaden and expand our symphonic canon, around some other things like that. But I was able to start that process and have been able to use work that I did in the MLA program around some of the issues of discriminatory discrimination in conservatories, right? Racial issues that have continued to plague our field. So it's been really gratifying to have started that scaffolding work several years ago with the work I was doing in the MLA program. And that wasn't it wasn't where I started. I didn't join this program thinking that's where I would end up, but um, it has been really beneficial from that standpoint as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very glad that you mentioned that, because it's a lot of students are actually entering the program thinking that they are going to pursue a PhD
Yeah.
after the program, and they're just basically testing the water, right?
Yep.
And others decide that they want to continue just like you, basically midway through the program. Oh, I really do want to do more work
Yeah.
in this area, and and we've been pretty successful in actually placing students in good programs. So yeah, it's definitely a not so rare trajectory to continue with another degree, a doctoral degree after the MLA.
I think it also
If
really speaks to the
Yeah,
quality of the professors that we're working with, and
yeah,
the quality of the courses in general, right? That
hmm
uh, having come from this program directly into a doctoral program, um, that there's the level of rigor that's um, sort of expected, and also
yeah,
sort
yeah, yeah, yeah,
of,
yeah, and the way also the program is built in the MLA. It's really good preparation for a PhD. I mean, you
absolutely.
teach, you are learning research, writing,
Yep.
what's a discipline, what's interdisciplinarity, right? And that's always very useful. Another question that I had for you, Andrew, is there a particular moment or a course or a book, an author that you studied in the MLA program that really had an impact on your thinking? There may be many of those, but if there is one moment that you could choose from.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find a specific moment. I think the course that really um, changed my trajectory was a course that you taught on critical theory. And um, again, I had a undergraduate degree in music. I spent the majority of my life, first half of my working life, sort of in the business side of music, and just because of the nature of that part of my life, I hadn't really dug into this concept of critical theory and how it the concepts of intersectionality and interdisciplinary that we've been talking about. That was the course that really started to tie it all together for me, right? That there are these theories and perspectives out there that can really help me as a scholar, help me as a researcher, find a path that makes some sense in the work that I was doing in a way that I hadn't thought of before, right? So really thinking critically about, I know that's the title, of course, but it really does apply, right? Really being able to think about how these subjects have been approached and impact have been about, and it's I will also say that it's an intense course, right? I mean, we covered a lot
Yeah,
in that semester.
yeah, you're not the only one who says that.
Yeah. But I have gone back to the work that we did in that
Yeah,
course. I
yeah,
saved all my
and
journal
that's
and
what I heard a lot too. Yeah,
saved all my
yeah,
discussion posts, and it's been really beneficial from that point. So
yeah,
I think that was really the course where I said, I enjoy this work. I enjoyed sort of this scholarly approach to um, and a thoughtful approach to the work I'm doing in my day-to-day life, but also in how I'm thinking about my personal focus. So that's uh, I know it's one of the options in course for sort of the core thing, but I think it's really a really great
yeah.
course.
And for the people who are listening to this podcast, either prospective students or new students in the MLA program, critical theory, as you mentioned, is one of the core courses that you can take in the program. And so that's a course that's offered pretty regularly every year, actually. And so
Yep.
you can take it, at the beginning of your career or at the end. It's really up to you. Um, Another question I have for you, and that I wanted to know more about, is um, one of the questions that our students are receiving from friends or from relatives, from parents when they enter the MLA program is, but what are you going to do with this degree?
You're right.
And that's a very common question. What would you say are the most valuable skills or knowledge that you acquired in the program that were particularly useful in your career or in your personal life?
Yeah. So it's that question of the efficacy of your degree, and
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is something that I've done that throughout my life, right? I had that same conversation with my parents when I went off to be a biologist.
Okay.
right? And that didn't take. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd always been a musician, and I finally came around to studying. So,
Hmm.
um, I think, and I'm also, my undergraduate degree was from a liberal arts institution, not from a
Hmm.
conservatory. So I am a large proponent of a liberal arts education in general. And as it applies in this case, in this particular course, um, the skills the ability to think creatively, to think critically about approaching various opportunities, problems, challenges that we face in our working life, um, are really, and I really do believe this. I think that this type of education really allows students, either younger students or older students like myself, to be able to apply the um, the concepts of being inquisitive, be creative about looking at problems, challenges from different perspectives. All of that was gained through this course, through this degree program.
Hmm.
Um, you know, Simply approaching topics and categories from a perspective we haven't seen before. So it's really those ideas of critical thinking, of creative approach, that I think that the MLA program offers for students is really transferable into so many work settings, particularly those in leadership, right? So, I've had a leadership role for a number of years in different contexts and settings, and I think that the ability of being able to take a step back and think about
Of course,
problems in
yeah.
a way that
Hmm.
is maybe non-traditional in some
Uh,
respects
uh-huh.
is one of the things that I've learned from this program. And again, the breadth of the course offerings was really helpful as well.
Yeah.
So it's look, it's I understand sometimes the questions about leading from a degree program directly into work. With this is we're not engineers, right? We're
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
in that part of it, but um, uh, this was the perfect choice for me to be able to create to continue my um, uh, progression
Hmm.
as a strong
Yeah,
leader.
yeah,
And again,
yeah,
not just because I'm in higher ed, not just I think that's a you know uh, just a reality, but it's not something that
yeah, yeah.
it couldn't translate into other fields just as easily.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned, you talked a little bit about this earlier, but so you're working in higher ed,
Mhm.
and you are doing research on discrimination in higher ed.
Mhm.
And so social justice is really a central theme of the Master of Liberal Arts at Hopkins. And so, one question that I had for you is, what role does a liberal arts education play in understanding the issue of the common good, social justice?
Mhm.
How did that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, this idea of social justice is such an important topic in
Yeah.
higher ed in general right now, right? But
Hmm. Hmm.
particularly in the work that we're doing in conservatory education. Um, and Speaking of Peabody specifically and sort of the conservatory world more broadly, it's these institutions have been really challenged by
Hmm.
discrimination, by systemic racism, a number of these realities, and working to unpack them, to finding the ways to have these conversations in a way that is um, equitable and open and impactful for making change, is something that I can't overstate.
Yeah.
We uh, I I'm approached by these challenges on a weekly basis
Yeah,
in
of course.
so
Hmm.
many
Hmm.
different configurations, right? So the uh, and again, I think it really comes back to building this framework and this and somehow a shared language that we learned
Uh-huh.
through some of these courses that we took around social justice. Um, the race and ethnicity course that I took
Yeah.
as this program was extremely beneficial. And as you know, these are can be challenging conversations, particularly in our polarized society right now.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's continuing to looking at me, personally, and I'm grateful that my doctoral program has a strong social justice focus as well. To be able to be a leader in that arena as we try to deal with this, right? So, and
Of course. Yeah.
for the folks who are listening, a cisgendered white man that has been asked in a lot of ways to help lead some of these um, initiatives
Yeah.
at
Yeah. Yeah.
Peabody and other places. And, it's some of the skills that I use on a daily basis really come from that core that I learned through this
Yeah. Yeah.
process. And it's
Yeah.
it's so important, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this. If you had to go back in time during your first semester, let's say at the in the MLA program, um, what advice would you give to a student who's just entering the program?
Yeah, it can be scary, right?
Yeah,
And again,
yeah,
I had a period of time as wasn't a student and came back to it. And I think that's, again, I know that there are a lot of older students. We had a really interesting cohort throughout.
yeah, yeah.
And it's not a program like some cohort programs where you go with the same group of 10 or 20 people through the whole program.
Of course,
Obviously,
yeah,
they come in and
absolutely.
out. But there were common faces and people that I met throughout the course that would pop up in other courses and whatnot. But I guess trust the process is
Hmm.
something
Hmm.
that I think is important. I think that the faculty um, are fully aware that we have some students like me who are returning to education
Yeah,
after a period, who are understanding about that, who realize that I'm not going to cite my references the right way the first time
yeah,
that the
mhm,
paper comes through,
of
right?
course, yeah.
So, let some of those hangups go. Don't let those be an
Hmm.
impediment from being able to move forward.
Yeah,
Every faculty member that I worked with was open and welcoming and helpful and found the time that
yeah,
if you need, extra help or you have questions,
yeah,
all of those things. There was nothing. Um, I guess what I would say is all of the impediments were in my head, right?
absolutely.
It was the things that I had made up that it was going to be too difficult. I wasn't have
Yeah,
time. I wouldn't understand, all those sort of things. So I'd encourage people to take a breath, trust the process, trust your advisors and your faculty, and
absolutely. And
and really dive into it from
yeah,
a place of curiosity.
yeah.
Um,
And
it can be a lot of fun in this.
yeah, that's what I always tell students. I mean, it's if you have a problem, if you are encountering a problem, it's very likely that I have, five other students who are in the same case scenario, and it's probable also that I've been in this scenario too. So we are here to help, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's always you just ask. We are just an email away, and there's we are here to help you. One last question for you, Andrew. And that's a very broad question here. Um, uh, how do you feel that you've changed in this program? Like, how did you feel that um, uh, how did you grow intellectually in this program?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in a couple of ways. I mean,
Mm.
there's very nuts and bolts ways that I grew as a scholar, through my education, right? Learning graduate research methods, right?
Yeah,
I hadn't had to do that before.
yeah.
Um, and that may sound to some folks as not very exciting, but I mean, it kind of is. I mean, there's
Hmm. Hmm.
really a lot of there's a lot of work that goes into that
Yeah.
research
Yeah.
process that is so applicable in everything you do and
Yeah.
sort of
In almost everything that you do, yeah, in life.
exactly.
So
You're
yeah.
right. And so that allowed me to really approach both my graduate work, but also my day-to-day work in a way that's
Mhm.
different. And the other thing is just and I mentioned this a couple times, and it's just really important. It's spending some time broadening my personal perspectives on specific topics and specific ideas. And again, the ability to choose a course path that
Yeah.
aligns with either your personal or professional um, desires and objectives is, I think, something unique. There are not a lot of programs that um, you have the ability to really do that from start to finish. And I think it can be done in a way that's uh, systematic on some level. I remember having a conversation with you at some point during the program about, my desire to transition or to continue rather with my doctoral program and how I thought that, these are the courses I think could help me get there on the next step, right? And so,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and all of which it aligned really well. So it's the other thing I really learned about myself is how much um, I need on some level this uh, intellectual output.
Yeah.
It's
Mm. Yeah.
we get to a point where we've got family and obligations and work and things like that.
Of course.
This is
Yeah.
this was an investment in me
Yeah.
that beyond the benefits
Yeah.
professionally that I really was grateful for.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Of course. Yeah. But Andrew, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know that a lot of students are going to find this very interesting. I mean, as you mentioned, we have a lot of artists, musicians
Yeah.
in the program, and so everybody comes with different backgrounds. But a story like yours is going to be very interesting for not only our prospective students but also current students in the program. So thank you so much for sharing.
I'm happy to do it, and I hope it's helpful for some folks. And I guess the last thing I would just leave
Yeah.
people there's a place for you in this program, regardless of where
Yeah.
you're
Yeah, of
from or where
course.
you're. And so, give some good thought to explore it.
Yeah. And so to our listeners, I just want to say also that we are publishing those podcasts, releasing those podcasts every 2 weeks. So please stay tuned for the next episode. And Andrew, thank you again.
Thank you very much.